Welcome to another episode of the Art in Session podcast, where we dive into the world of creative professionals, offering inspiration, insights, and practical tools for artists at every stage of their journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our conversations are here to support your growth, connect you with the community, and help you make a real impact with your art. Let's get into it. Quick rundown of the overall flow. We're going to do an intro. We just did our meditation. We're going to share some information about ourselves. We'll talk about telling your story and how your website is a really good way to do that. We'll dive into all of the social media platforms, not all of them, but the ones that we have a lot of experience with and can definitely speak confidently on, and some that you may be familiar with as well. And then we'll talk strategy development and give you some really good tips for how to get that consistency that so many of you are looking for. So we'll get started with a little chat with Domé.
So a little bit about myself. I've been a full-time artist for 10 years now. I was born in Lithuania. I'm primarily self-taught. I don't feel comfortable saying that I'm self-taught because I've studied with all of these amazing artists, and I like to take workshops from the artists that I admire. So I've studied with Alex Gray, Oleg Korolev, C.T. Nelson, Michael Fuchs, and a handful of other artists. And social media is what enabled me to go study with Oleg, because I already had a big enough platform to where I fundraised my trip. So it was so incredibly rewarding, not just to be able to do that, but also to know that I have an audience, and then there's other people that are invested in my own success, and people believe in my art that much that they want me to continue to pursue it. So that was a huge healing, amazing moment in my journey as an artist. My associate's degree is in graphic design, which I didn't really do anything with it, but I do feel like I use it in my own business. So when it comes to, designing products or banners and all of that stuff, it's definitely come in handy. But I also feel like you can teach yourself all of these things through the internet, through YouTube, or just by taking short, quick courses. So I do believe those are skills that are important to have, but I definitely never had any intention to pursue graphic design outside of that. And yeah, as I mentioned, I've been doing this for 10 years, and it's been fully supporting me for at least the past 7 years. And building an art business has taken a lot of patience and persistence. I'm always expanding my skill set. I am learning new things. I'm not afraid to venture out and learn things that might not be fun, that are paying off in other ways. So I've invested a lot in online courses. I've definitely taken social media courses before. I've done art trades for coaching. And so there's always ways around that. You don't have to pay everything out of the pocket, but especially now when I get paid for social media, that when I post my art, I take all that money and I invest it back into my business. So that way I can continue to expand and grow my skills, because your knowledge is what takes you places. That's one thing that you can never lose. The more that you know, the more that you can create, and the more options that you have to pursue different routes. And in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about my art. So the mission behind my work is to show the world that everything is interconnected. So I paint the unified field to help us remember that we are connected to one another, our environment, and the divine. This is why I spent so much time getting my artwork in front of people, because as much as I enjoy doing it, I also believe that it's a language of communication, and that we can say things with artwork that we cannot say in words. So art is kind of experienced rather than, seen or heard. And I do believe that, the spiritual messages that have come to me that I've experienced, I want to be able to share that with the world, and art is how I do it. So my art is inspired by nature, the divine feminine, and the occult, and these are the topics that I choose to talk about in my social media presence. And none of this would have been possible without social media. As I've been reflecting back, social media is kind of what encouraged me to pursue art, because I was already working a bunch of random day jobs, but then I started doing some pet portraits and posting them on Facebook, and they've received a lot of interest, and that kind of planted the seed that maybe I can turn this into something more. So I didn't realize until very recently, but social media has definitely played a lot bigger part in my art journey than I was even aware of. And so here are some of the ways that I've earned money as an artist. The first one is festival posters. I was still like 16 or 17 when I started going to festivals. I would just put every band name on the poster, make it all trippy, and I would come home with more money than I left with. And to me, that was like, oh wow, I was always told that art doesn't pay, but here I am like making money from going partying, the stuff that I'd already be doing. So that definitely planted the seed. The seed. I love festival scene. People really admire art, and you can keep going. You just press a bunch of them. Yes, pet portraits was like the next thing because, like as I mentioned before, off of Facebook, I started painting my own dogs. People were interested, so that was the first time when I kind of like was teetering and seeing how I was like, wow, I make almost as much money as I do at my day job. So maybe if I push this a little harder, I could actually transition. And that's what I did. Then I started selling original paintings, prints, commission paintings. I've done some logos here and there, but as I mentioned, graphic design is just not my thing. My coloring books, my stoner coloring books were probably one of my most successful projects to date. And that went viral, and without even any effort on my part, I just shared it on, like they found me on Etsy, and then it went viral on this website called thisiswhyimbroke.com, which is just like novelty and gag gifts. And I was selling so many of those books that I was literally just like making a passive income off of this project that I completed in a couple of months. And that was like, it really enabled me to support myself as an artist. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can coast by and I can, create more things and work on it. So that kind of showed me where it's like, your work pays off, and it's all about just like learning to manage your time and your money and coast by from project to project until you accumulate enough to really live comfortably. And then apparel, stickers, hand painted signs. I used to have a sign that said, home is where the weed at. And people are still messaging me about that sign, being like, can I buy the sign? So I had some that were really popular, like regular, like home decor stuff. People love custom things. I'm still doing print on demand products like prints and canvas prints. I rarely do limited editions. Like most of my stuff is print on demand right now. I've gotten paid from TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook for making content. I'm running, well, I don't really run my Etsy shop. I completely transitioned into Shopify, but I still have it up. So I'm still getting a little bit of organic traffic, and all of that gets printed on demand. So I don't even have to fulfill the orders. So it is like a little bit of residual income. And I've also sold directly through social media. So while we're going to talk about the importance of having your home base and your own website and a landing page and all of that, it's not necessary to get started. You can definitely start selling stuff without it, but we definitely recommend it if you are pursuing art as a professional. I've also done a monthly art subscription Moonmail, which is kind of, I got the idea from Patreon, but I didn't see the point of giving Patreon a percentage. So I just set that up on my own website, and I do the subscription through PayPal. It's currently on pause, but that was definitely really successful. And it was really nice to get like knowing that there's a little bit of monthly income coming in, so I don't have to, worry about jumping from project to project. I've done some murals, although I'm not quite as experienced as Ania, but taking her last course was definitely really empowering, and I've done a handful of those. I've taught some in-person classes here at my art studio. I also offer somatic art business mentorship, which the reason I do this is because a lot of people just want a step-by-step plan. And what I've learned in my own experience, that it doesn't really matter how right you're doing things and how much knowledge you acquire. There's always a piece. If there is some internal shame or trauma or self-doubt, we always find ways to sabotage ourselves. So I've kind of like created this program, which like what has worked for myself is releasing your emotions. So if someone is trying to show up online, but they get a knot in their stomach, we'll talk them through it and like be with it and feel it and release it and move through it. So I've kind of like combined business coaching with somatic therapy releasing, and that's what I offer one-on-one. But I don't take very many students because it is energetically draining for me, because I do take it really seriously, and I'm always thinking about the people that I'm working with.
Art in Session is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide professional and educational opportunities to creatives. Thanks to support from our listeners, we are able to keep this mission going. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider donating at www.artinsession.org.
I've also done a whole lot of vending at fairs and some festivals, and I'm doing that less and less and less. And the more I do social media, the more I am amazed at how much patience and effort I've put into doing those things with how little reward. And while I know it can be really fun and really successful at times, I'm not really seeing that as a viable path for myself at the moment. I've also done some galleries and consignment gift stores, but again, I'm kind of moving away from that because it's really hard to keep track of inventory and hope that it's always well taken care of. Um, and live streaming, I've also been paid just to live paint online, which is so much better than live painting at events, if you ask me. And I'll talk a little bit more about that opportunity on the next slide. And Instagram auctions, yes, that's another source of income. I've also done some sketches for like design firms. As I read through that, I was like, that's not even an exhaustive list. There's definitely more things that I've done, but I just wanted to put it out there to give you some ideas that, you know, it's more plausible to make a living as an artist than ever before. And as long as you're willing to experiment and dive into specific interest and see what works for you and where you land, you know, carving your own path is the name of the game. So none of that would have happened without social media. Here are some opportunities that I've gotten just because of social media, although most of that was possible just because of social media, but here's some things. So during lockdowns, when everything shut down, that's when my TikTok was really kicking off, and I was selling paintings for like over $1,000 for originals to complete strangers, as like we were kind of freaking out, not knowing what's going to happen. The world's locked down, and that's kind of when it hit me. It gave me a new level of appreciation for everything that I've worked for, because in that moment I knew that like all of these years were not in vain, and I'm not wasting my time, and I'm not being crazy or stupid, because in that moment I felt more secure than I would have as like a lawyer or whatever your traditional safe paths that we think you have to do in order to be safe in this world. And during lockdowns, I was like, wow, everything I've been working towards, like in this moment, I knew that it was the right choice because I have complete control over whether or not I work, who buy, like how big my business can scale, all of that. So it was incredibly reassuring. Being able to live in a rural place, which is also really important to me because I like being in nature. I appreciate silence. I get to hike right out my door, and I can live in a nicer place because it's more affordable. So I can still, you know, minimize my expenses and invest as much as I can in my business and do that from a rural place, which to me is worth more than anything in the world. As I mentioned, I was able to crowdfund my Europe study trip, and that's because I already had a little bit of a following. I do want to say I messaged almost every single person on my Facebook list. It wasn't just like I posted it once and then everyone donated. That's not how it works. Like I definitely like reached out to everybody. I told them what it means to me and why I wanted to do it. And I also did it. I can't remember the website it does, but most people got an option to like buy a print or a tarot reading or something else. So like it was kind of like an exchange, but a lot of people did choose to just donate. And yeah, meeting people through social media is incredibly amazing. Collaborations with inspiring artists, which Ellie Paisley, who's our guest today, we did a collaboration together. We still have not met in real life, but we already did a painting together and we sold it, and we can't wait to meet and do more art together. But I've met a lot of other artists, and that led to other opportunities in going to certain events and meeting more collectors. And so social media is definitely really, really good for networking. And now I actually feel a little less awkward because a lot of people know me from my social media presence, so I don't feel like I have to do that icebreaker thing. Like I get incredibly socially anxious sometimes. So when people are like, "Oh, hey, you're Domé," like to me that kind of breaks the ice to where I was like, I feel more comfortable at events because there's already no ice to be broken. Like people know what I do, and we can just move from there. And as I mentioned, I was able to build a couple passive income streams, having a global community of people that resonate with your art. I get messages almost daily of people saying that, like, I'm only doing art because I saw your artwork, or I heard this message that you said and it made me think. So, that's rewarding beyond all means. That's not something that we ever had in the past, especially in our own hands. Like normally you'd have to go through, typical media channels and have to appease to those overlords and have to show up and have a certain message and do all of that. But here with social media, you can be yourself. You can preach what you truly believe in. You can be an outcast and still find people that resonate. Getting live paint to paint online, that was a really cool opportunity because I live stream on TikTok and people can send you gifts and stuff. But there was a competitor app that was trying to be a TikTok, and they were scouting people off of TikTok. So they paid me like $700 a month to live stream for, I think it was like 10 hours a week. So basically, I would just do my studio hours and put a camera on and get paid to do that. So it's like, yeah, sign me up. And then in the meantime, gaining more audience and people that are interested in the painting. So that's kind of that's not something I would have imagined had it not happened to me. Getting podcast interviews and some magazine articles written to, people just find you through your stuff. And if you're using the right hashtags and you're sharing a certain message, people that resonate with it are definitely going to reach out to help spread your message. I got an invitation to a reality TV show. This was a really cool opportunity. They were doing a show that was basically an artist competition, kind of like Project Runway, but for artists. And yeah, I got an invitation again. I got scouted, so I did do an audition and I got through, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it because I had to take care of my dad. But that was a really cool opportunity because the winner of the show was receiving $100,000, and there was a lot of money being passed around for all um, the other episodes that isn't just the main prize. But unfortunately, I didn't get to participate. But just the fact that I live in the middle of nowhere in a town of 2,000 people, and I got invited to do something like that. So that just shows the power of social media. Yeah, Stella says, your story showed me it's possible. I met Stella a few years back, and I really love hearing that because I really love Stella's artwork. And so to know that I played a part in her own journey, I'm like, yes, we're building momentum. All right, and so here are some of my socials. This is my Etsy shop, and as I said before, I don't really use it anymore. However, I decided not to shut it down because I do have a lot of 5-star reviews, and so I want to just have that out there. And also right now, I just have it hooked up to my print on demand store. So when people purchase it through there, I don't even have to do the fulfillment. So I'm running my website where my originals are and etc. But Etsy is still a good like search engine option. So I decided to stay there, but I never direct any people there. My TikTok it was my biggest social media success. Like I was on Instagram for years and I didn't really vibe with it. It did feel like a chore and I had to force it. And then when I got on TikTok, it almost awakened this part of me that had been suppressed where I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to pursue acting and I actually really enjoyed being on stage and being seen. And somehow along my teen years, that totally got shut down. And so when I got back on TikTok, it slowly started to awaken. So it kind of became another creative expression for me. And while TikTok is harder to grow on nowadays, it's still a lot easier than it's going to be in a year. So it's definitely not too late to get on TikTok. I'm pretty partial to it. I'll be talking a lot about it. But yeah, TikTok is a really good place. And this is my Instagram. I did have another page for just my stoner coloring books that I grew to over 40,000 followers. And that's something I wanted to mention because it actually got deleted since because of like weed themed products or whatever. So we are going to talk a lot about how to protect yourself from your accounts getting shut down, and to also try to funnel all of your followers to a newsletter. So that way you always can keep a contact with them in case, you know, you get hacked or your account is suspended and etc. Because while these tools are so amazing for reaching an audience, they might not necessarily always be sustainable. So we do want to kind of think long term and make sure that we always have access to this audience. And you do not need a large following to start making money. You need an engaged community that can relate to you. So your message is so much more important than the number of followers that you have. We are going to talk about metrics a little bit, but you don't want to get caught up in it. You want to think of it more long term, look at your metrics over a few months rather than day to day or post to post. And what you want to focus on more is like, are people engaging? Are people resonating with your message? Do people understand what you're actually saying? Like that, those things are far more important than the number of followers, because you can run a successful business with, you know, 1,000 followers or less. Like those huge numbers are nice, and it definitely helps you get into more events and opens up other opportunities, but it's not there. I know people that have like 100,000 followers and have never made a cent off of their platform. So those numbers don't equal success is all I want to say about that. And now we're on to Ania.
Yeah, Domé, thank you so much. Like, it's so inspiring to see how many different ways you've been able to support yourself in your art journey by leveraging social media. And I know even for me, there are so many ways I hadn't even thought of. I didn't know that new platforms, you know, would be willing to pay you a monthly fee just to, you know, help build out their space and to have a presence there. So that's really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, guys. So my name's Ania Amador, and I've been an artist for a long time, but I realized my own potential in college. I consider myself a deliberate creator, painter, speaker, and mentor. I graduated from Florida State with a degree in philosophy and economics. It's not anything to do with art. I was on the law school track. But I realized early on in school that I could reach out to local businesses, fraternity houses, and sororities and paint murals, and that I could support myself through college by painting murals on the side. And yeah, it's kind of when I realized that I could make money from my art. I ended up not going to law school, but I started a social media marketing company called SM3. And these are some of my clients. I had the largest apartment complexes, restaurants, nightclubs, and I was marketing to these college students where they ate, slept, hung out. I had a full internship program where I had my clients pay me in partial cash and partial trade, so then I could pay the interns in gift certificates to the places they were already socializing in. And it was an awesome exchange, and I learned a lot by helping these guys grow out their followings. But eventually it just got old. Like, this is at the brink of when social media really started to be used to generate sales and traffic. And many of these businesses were brick and mortars that needed physical bodies walking through the door to purchase their products or services. So there was a lot to be learned at the time, and also to try to convince them of the potential of social media without seeing an immediate return. And it got old to me. You know, I knew where social media was headed, but ultimately I wanted to start making art. Oops, I think I skipped a slide. Maybe not. Here's a couple of, we'll watch a short video of some of the stuff that I do. I don't know if that's my internet with a load. If it doesn't load here, okay. So I paint murals. I paint at festivals. And this was kind of the start of my festival journey. As I was exiting out of my marketing situation, I was like praying for a vehicle to reach a lot of people. And I got a giant 90-foot LED Ferris wheel. Some of my interns brought the owner of this Ferris wheel to my art show, and he saw that I was really good at marketing and also good at art, and offered me the opportunity to go on the road and tour at some of the biggest music festivals across the country. I'd never been to a music festival at this time, but I packed all my stuff into my art studio, got rid of my apartment, let go of all of my clients on my marketing platform except one that I could keep like a little bit of income to even make this possible. And I went on the road. And at these festivals, I'm seeing just so many people and the opportunity to reach them with my art and help facilitate experiences for other artists. And I created the brand Wally, the Wheel of Lights and Inspirations, and campaigns like I Got High on Wally. And this is the wheel, and we were the inspirations with live painting, and I always had a booth. It was really cool to get to see this whole new market that I could reach with art that I didn't know anything about. And it's also where I met my business partner, Christopher Morphus, and we have a whole side project where we paint together. I also paint murals. That's one of my largest sources of income. And that's also how I leverage social media the most, is by finding new mural clients. All three of these projects have gone viral. This Alice in Wonderland room got over 52 million views on Facebook, well over 1 million likes. I had over 6 million views on TikTok on the ocean ceiling mural. And then it actually went viral again about 6 months later and got picked up by some of the largest accounts on Instagram. My account went from like 5,000 followers to 25,000 followers to now a little over 30, all within a really short time span, considering like within 2 years, all of these projects helped to set that off. The Space Pool also went viral on Reddit, which is a really cool platform that we'll talk about, and a lot of cross promotion between all of the platforms with these projects specifically. Here's just some of my accounts as well. TikTok has been a blessing for me. I'm still learning, and so I'm really glad to be here with Domé, who's got such a solid grounding there. Instagram, I'm still trying to get a foothold, but doing my best to keep consistent. And then Facebook is probably my most active platform, where I have generated the most of my income and continue to help reach other artists. And it's definitely spent a lot of time on Facebook. And then Reddit, as I mentioned before, that's a really unique platform that I've been able to leverage in a variety of ways. Am I in full screen on this slideshow? Okay. So Ania Amador Art LLC, that is my main company. And then I have several different branches that are all tied together, but all do different things. And I use social media for each one of them. Most of the things that I'm doing here would not be possible without social media. Just to touch on a few, I've got the Mural Maze, which is a large scale art installation that's traveled to festivals around the country. I've got Deliberate Creation, which is an intentional meditation practice, leveraging the law of attraction. Expansion Retreats, where I'm hosting art and meditation retreats all around the country. I try to do at least 2 a year, and that's been super rewarding. Art in Session, where we are now, where we can take this information and pass it on. The Vision Train is linked into that. That's a 24-hour global art jam. And then Anamorphosis Art, that's my side project with Chris Morphus. So with many of these, I'm selling my prints, I'm finding new clients, I'm booking jobs, I am getting my message out there, I'm making connections with other like-minded people that can help further this overall mission to spread a positive message through my efforts, whatever that may be, to encourage other people and basically to live my best life and help others realize their own potential in doing that too. All right, we're going to touch on changing the narrative. Meg, can you tell me if this looks like it's in full screen?
No, if you press escape and then press present again.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening here?
There you
go. Okay, there we go. So right now, I feel like there's this vibe around social media that's like, I'm an artist, and unfortunately, that also means I have to be a content creator. And whenever I hear stuff like that, or I start feeling my own resistance around social media, I try to think about artists before the internet. They relied primarily on in-person encounters to show people their work, right? If they were talking about the fact that they make art, they couldn't just pull out their cell phone and show people their portfolios. There was an extremely high opportunity cost to be an artist. Like what it would take you to have to get your art out there would require the financing to reach out to multiple galleries to try to find interest. If you were throwing an art show, you might have to buy a mailing list and invitations and hope that by sending that out that people would be interested. There were just across the board so many investments that you'd have to make that may or may not pay off in that case. Again, relying solely on word of mouth. And it was very difficult to build and calculate value in art. Now I can say that my art is worth this much because I've got X amount of supporters and X amount of art sales, and we're able to track all of that information to be able to help build value in what it is that we have to offer. But before the internet, that just wasn't possible. Many artists, as we know, had to die before people found their art valuable. So we all have the opportunity to tell our story without needing to deliver it ourselves. That is so huge, to be able to send someone to a link where they can learn everything they need to know about us and our art. We have the potential to reach millions of people with our art and our message just with the click of a mouse, right? Not the 50 people that might live in your neighborhood, not just your friends and family, but a global market that we can reach through social media. And we have direct access to consumers and patrons of the arts. And the reason this might seem obvious, but I feel the need to mention it, is that whenever I feel resistance behind my social media efforts, I try to remember this and feel gratitude for the opportunity at hand, that it's not just about our ability to make money off of art, but how many people might stop their day in looking at something in their news feed of my art and be present with that piece and not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or what's next. Like we're helping people reach a place of clarity or alignment by putting ourselves out there and sharing what we've done. So that opportunity in itself is something super valuable to me. And I know that all of our ancestor artists that wish they could have this opportunity would be pushing us to show up and do our best as well. Do you have any comments on this one, Domé?
I was just thinking about how it's so easy to take it for granted, and how quickly we forget what an amazing opportunity and a tool it is. And some of the younger people might not even know a world without social media, so they don't even know that that wasn't an option. Because to me, like, yeah, my whole life I was told like this isn't a safe path, like you can't make money as an artist, and like all of that was true at that time, but I don't live in that world right now. So it's like I'm undoing all of the mental brainwashing that I had to like pick up along the way. But right now being an artist is almost an advantage because we are speaking with a visual language across the globe, you know. So I think being a creative, not necessarily a painter, but just being a creative person, we definitely have more opportunities these days.
Absolutely. They called it starving artists because those people were actually starving. Like art supplies were expensive. It wasn't as simple as just going down to your local art store, you know, and
Mhm.
to be able, like I mentioned, the opportunity cost. So I think you're right that we just don't live in that time anymore. And there's so many more opportunities through social media.
Yeah, let's talk about finding your voice, because whenever I bring up this subject with people, and a lot of the people that we've been talking about this course to, there's so much resistance and so much hesitation, and kind of what Anya touched on. People are like, oh, I don't feel like what I have to say is important, or I don't think my art is valuable, or I just don't have time. And to me, it sounds like there's just a lot of excuses that we are giving ourselves because there is some internalized fear. Like for most people, I think we have a fear of judgment, which, you know, I'm familiar with that. I think belonging to a tribe is one of the most primal needs that we have. So even unconsciously, we don't want to look stupid. We don't want to embarrass ourselves. So we're always like fighting against that. But there's a very fine line where if you step out of that comfort zone, next time it becomes that much easier. Next time it becomes that much easier. And the next time someone's like, wow, if I didn't see that post, this wouldn't have happened. Or I was so inspired to create because of you. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, next time I'm holding myself back, I'm going to post twice as much because I already know that it's affecting people positively. So I really encourage people to identify what is underneath that, what is actually holding you back. Like, is it something that somebody said when you were growing up, like a sibling, a parent, someone made fun of you? Is it some of that? Are you self-conscious? Like, because personally, I also noticed that when I was really judgmental and like thinking that other people are embarrassing themselves, that's when I was really holding myself back. Because if you're judging other people, you're assuming everyone's judging you. So as I let go of judgment, I kind of just assumed that nobody's judging me. So I was able to show up that much more freely. So reflecting on things like that, like, is there fear of judgment and negative comments? Do you feel like an imposter because, you know, what you have to offer is valid? Are you comparing yourself to others? Where is this coming from? Like, spend some time journaling. Even if, you know, like the thought of live streaming might make you really nervous, just like sit with those feelings and get down. What's underneath there? Can you just like not even need a message, not why or what is this coming from, but can you just be with the discomfort and then choose to show up anyways? And then see if next time that discomfort is still even there. Because a lot of times it's just the initial fear of like, I've never done something like this, so it's scary. And then you do it and nothing happened. And it's like, this is what I was so scared of. So yeah, don't let those self-imposed limitations and excuses stop you. Also, unfollow and block anyone that makes you feel uncomfortable or self-conscious. Like personally, I think the reason I was able to show up on TikTok more freely is because it felt so anonymous. I knew nobody I know in real life was on there yet, so I could literally do whatever I want, say whatever I want, create an alter ego, a persona, and no one was gonna be like looking at me weird or questioning me about it. So I felt like that's why I was able to like flourish in that creative aspect of myself. That had been stuffed down because I wasn't afraid to be a weirdo that nobody knows. And so this includes not just like people that you think might judge you, but also like if you don't want to be seen by your family members or like your old high school friends, like you can remain friends with these people and they don't need to be following you on all your social media presences. So I am a big advocate for like people that make you feel bad, even like maybe it's an amazing artist that you really admire, but every time you see them, you feel less than, like, oh, I'll never be that good or anything at all. Like you don't need that negativity. Maybe down the line you want to follow them again, but for the time being, I'm a bit advocate of just like clear your space. Anything that doesn't need to be there doesn't need to be there. So unfollow and block anyone that is rude to you or making you feel bad or self-conscious about it. You have a unique perspective and your voice deserves to be heard. Your art deserves to be seen. Put in the work to reach those who need your medicine because we all have a unique perspective. We all need to communicate with each other, which is another miracle of social media, is because we get to hear a diverse perspective of voices that wasn't happening before. You know, all of our media came from a newspaper, from television that was watered down through the same filters. And today it's not that. So whatever you have to offer is important and it's worth showing up for. Define your intention. Why are you showing up online? What are your goals? What do you want to say? The reason I put down this point is because when you might not be getting a lot of traction or you feel exhausted or you're bored or it doesn't seem worth it, if you go back to your intention, why you're doing this, it's a way to sustain your inspiration. It's to remember why this is important to you. And be authentic. You don't have to be like anybody else. You don't have to pretend to be like the most popular artist that you follow. You don't have to imitate their character or their persona or what they're doing. Just be yourself, let your freak flag fly. People really love authenticity and people are attracted to people that are being real and being themselves. So share your journey. You don't have to pretend to be the most professional or advanced or inspiring artist. If you are just struggling and having a hard time, like share that with the audience. Like people want to know where you are. People want to see your success as it's happening or your troubles as they're happening. So just being real and showing up with the message where you are instead of where you intend to be. Like share where you intend to be and help people see you make it from here to there and connect the dots. Like that in itself becomes your story and people become invested in what you're doing. So if you feel really uncomfortable being in front of camera, like I never liked taking selfies. I hated hearing my own voice or being filmed and all of that. And now it's coming to me pretty naturally for the most part. Like I no longer feel uncomfortable like hearing my voice or over analyzing. So for a while I would just like post things and never look at them again. Like I still am like that with podcasts actually, because I'm really particular about the words I want to use. So if I misspeak about something, I'm like, oh, I can't hear it. So I really invite you to practice. If you feel completely uncomfortable being seen and being heard, just record yourself with no intention of ever posting it. Just know that you're gonna erase it, but just practice doing it, because the more that you do it, the less awkward it becomes. And so this is our first little challenge to you, is to record a short video of your introduction. Like, who are you? What inspires your art? What's something unique about you? These could all be separate videos too, because we don't need long videos in this day and age. But it could just be one video, or you can break it up into a bunch of smaller ones. But the point is just get yourself out there, get comfortable doing that. And you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do on social media. There's so many different platforms, many different ways to show up. However, I really want to draw the point across, like, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, because a lot of times we're holding ourselves back and it seems like a big deal and we really believe in our limitations. But if you just step out of that comfort zone and realize there was no danger there ever, and then you can show up in a much bigger way and reach so many more people. So if something is an absolute deal breaker, don't feel like you have to do it. But I really, really encourage you to kind of be with it and explore what's underneath that fear that's holding you back. I like to think of social media as a performance art, an extension of your creative practice. And you can even put on a whole act of creating a painting, like it doesn't need to be your entire process, but maybe in the very beginning, you do some like paint splattering or tell a poem about how you cried this painting onto a canvas or something. And then at the end, just show like the finished product. But you can totally just think of social media as an art form in itself. So it doesn't have to be this, oh, I have to be a fake influencer with a polished image and do my fake smile and show my picture, and that's the only thing that's going to get me out there. It's quite the opposite. People are sick and tired of seeing the polished image. So if you just show up as your creative self and turn short form video making into your own, like extend that into your art practice, you can go so far so fast. And don't forget to incorporate your any other talents and interests that you have. How can you combine that with your art practice? Like if you're really into Victorian history or something, maybe you are showing time lapses of you painting and you're talking about your recent discoveries in Victorian churches or whatever. So you can always combine some interests, so you show up as your authentic self and you're still creating content and helping your art get out there without trying to just really compartmentalize your personality. How can you use the framework of what works to make it your own? And I don't mean just what works for other artists. I also believe that getting ideas from other industries, what is working for other industries, how can you bring this to the art form? How can you make that your own and express yourself in a way and, help yourself gain an audience by doing things that are working, but not necessarily trying to fit into a box, more so making the box work for you. So we touched a little bit about the quality over quantity when it comes to followers, but we really want to drive that point. You can keep tapping. So don't stress about the numbers. Sometimes losing followers can be a good thing. And you want the audience who really resonates with your message. So if you change your mind about something and suddenly you're losing a bunch of followers, if you change your art style and suddenly you're losing followers, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means it's a good thing, because people that are not interested in your stuff are leaving. So people that are interested in your stuff are staying. So it makes the followers that you do have left that much more valuable, and they're going to be able to see your work more likely and engage more likely. So losing followers is not always a bad thing. A lot of times people even will remove followers if they look like fake profiles or bots or any of that to better your own engagement. And yeah, that brings to the other point, delete fake followers because it increases your engagement. It's really good to have an idea of who is your ideal customer, who is the person you're talking to, what do they like, what is the language they use, what content they would enjoy. And it's not that you have to tailor yourself to your audience. It's more so you have an image of like, who are you speaking to when you're making a post? Because if you're trying to speak to everybody, it kind of gets watered down and you're not reaching the people that you really want to talk to. So start to think about who do you think, and obviously this takes a little bit of research and some time to get to know who your customer is, but just begin to create that framework for what kind of person am I speaking to when I'm posting. And once again, I have a zero tolerance policy for people that are rude or abusive. I just don't have time for that. I do not engage. I just block them. Because people are just miserable and they just want your attention and they're going to drain you. So it's never personal. It's never about what you're doing.
Totally. Those are all really good points. Anybody here stress sometimes over quality? Over quantity of followers, or that number dropping, or just, I know sometimes I compare myself to other people, and what she said here, just it being about the quality of that person and knowing that I would rather have 500 followers that really care about what I'm doing than 10,000 people that followed me off of one post, or that, were bots, people that don't even have any relevance to what it is that I'm doing. So this is a process of letting that go, but some really good thoughts here, Domé.
Yeah, of course. I think we all get caught up in the numbers.
Totally. Okay, so this section is about telling your story. Such an important thing to do, and we have a variety of ways to do that. How many of you have an artist bio? If you got your camera on. Cool. How about an artist statement? All right, a CV. So here's just a little difference between those. Although the internet feels like a vast sea of opportunity, communities break down into smaller groups of people that have shared interests. We're going to touch on this a lot through the different platforms and how you can reach those niche-based markets, but knowing what your niche is really important to telling your own story. Your artist bio, that's going to be a detailed narrative about your journey as an artist, written in third person. It includes significant milestones in your art career, and it can include personal information such as where you were born. I've seen a lot of really long artist bios, and it is, in my opinion, like, these different things might change depending on who you're submitting it to, but people's attention spans have become shorter and shorter. This is about my bio as it led to me being an artist, going off on random tangents about my childhood or including too many details about me as a person that are not focused or related to my art. It's just not necessarily relevant and probably not a good time for that. I like to keep my artist bio to 1 page or less, couple paragraphs to get to the point and tell who you are. Your artist statement is even shorter than that. It's a not too long series of sentences that describe what you make and why you make it. It's a stand-in for you, the artist, talking to someone about your work in a way that adds to their experience of viewing that artwork. Your artist statement is not your artist's bio. That is not the time to be telling your life story. And you have to remember, like, if somebody goes to your website, they don't know anything about you, that artist statement might be the only thing that they read. And if they're coming to your art website, it's because they're interested in your art. So keeping this information, all of these different things, very relevant to your craft is important. Your CV, that's a record of your professional experiences and artistic achievements used to apply for juried exhibition grants, awards, gallery shows, commissions, and residencies. Again, these can all change depending on what you're applying for, and it may be appropriate to shorten them or to refine them depending on what the use is. And then in terms of it being a focal point on your website, always short and concise and to the point. How many people have websites? Okay, awesome. This may seem like some basic points here about websites, but I think it's really important to remember. One, your website is your home base. That's the spot outside of social media with no barriers to entry. If your only presence right now is on Instagram and I'm not on Instagram, I have a barrier between me and your art that I want to see. So your website gives access to anybody that can just go right to that URL and see what it is that you have to offer. So even if you don't have a full-on website or your shop set up or you're far from that, having just a single page that's got some information about you and some pictures of your work and where to contact you, or maybe even a contact form, can be super helpful in those moments where you're like, hey, I don't have time to tell you everything, but I just want to send you to this page. It helps people reach you after the fact, when that moment with them may be lost. Up-to-date and accurate information. I know I struggle with this because I'm updating my Instagram, my Facebook, my TikTok, my Reddit, my YouTube. By the time I get around to the website, sometimes it's like months after a project. And I'm really trying to get ahead of that to have like more up-to-date and accurate information, because I've really underestimated how many people are clicking on that website. Even if they're coming from my Instagram and my link tree, they go to that website, and I want that to be the place where they can find what they need. User-friendly, super important. Think about how short attention spans are. If I go to a website that I can't immediately find what I'm looking for, I'm out. So when I look at my analytics, I'm looking at something called a bounce rate, which is going to tell me how long before they bounced, before they left. And if it's not user-friendly, that's going to be right away. Is it reflective of your style? Is it effective in telling your story? If they were to not have the chance to meet you or watch any of your videos or know anything about you as a person, would your website be a good representation of who you are and what you're doing? The contact form is huge. And for those of you that don't have websites, this may be, or do have websites, this may be a point of interest that you might not be taking advantage of. Having an efficient and like pretty elaborate contact form can be very helpful for filtering out leads. When these projects went viral, I had tons of people hitting me up on all the platforms asking about available paintings or murals or how to get an estimate. And I sent everybody to my contact form. And that contact form asks the information that I'm going to need to be able to help them best. So if it's a general contact form, it'll have the obvious information. And then it may say something like, what are you most interested in? Custom painting, mural, retreat, and I'm listing the things that I offer. For those of you that are very diverse and do have a lot of services, it helps to be able to have that additional field in there to help funnel those leads out. It also, for my murals specifically, I use my contact form to ask details about the project. What's the size? What's the level of detail of the concept? What's the condition of the wall, etc.? Because that's all information I'm going to need to know to put together an accurate estimate. And that also could take multiple back and forth between me and the potential client of asking those questions individually, as opposed to having one form that asks everything I need to know all in one place. It saves you time, and it saves you the hassle of having all of your leads spread out. I know I'll get a message on Instagram for something, I get another message on Facebook. Now all of a sudden I forgot who I've responded to. If I ask everybody to go to the form, yes, it's an additional step they have to take to be able to get the answers they need, but it really helps me in the long run to have everything in one place that I can just check off who I have already contacted and keep track of that stuff. So a good, thorough contact forms are money.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that real quick. I also have, it's a contact form, but what I call like a commission request form. So that way they already have the basic information and they know what your minimum pricing is. And I think sending people to that form, it already weeds out all the people that weren't serious anyways. Because if they can't just do this one request, they were never going to do it, but they were going to ask you a million questions. But if they can go there and fill that out and already have the basic questions answered, you are that much more solid on that customer. Because yeah, when you are going viral, you're getting, at least 10 inquiries a day. And by the time you're done messaging everyone back, your whole day is gone.
Yeah, it's so true. So that's also where I keep like just some basic information I know they might be asking about, and then I collect everything else I need to know in that form. So important.
Since we're speaking of forms, how do you like to use the contact form, through your website or through an external contact form plugged in?
That's a good question. It depends on how many inquiries I'm getting. Me personally, I use a program called Jotform, and that's because I have applications for my mural maze project. I get inquiries for my mural request form. I have commission request form. I have a bunch of different forms, and I like to be able to have one all-inclusive backend. If I didn't have that much incoming like data, I would just use the contact form through my website that's already accessible through the backend and the platform I'm already familiar with.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just use my website and then I have whatever questions I want them to answer, like boldly listed right before it.
So it's also your gallery, your storage. That's where you're keeping a lot of your images. And the point again here, guys, is to take your main source of information outside of these platforms to be stored somewhere else. So if Instagram shuts down or if people stop using Facebook, you know, that you'll have a separate place that you've already established a strong presence that you can send them to. And then the subscribe option, we're going to keep driving that home. Building out your mailing list is huge. Having an intake form where people can subscribe to your newsletter and say, yes, I want you to send me this email is super helpful. How many people are doing newsletters? Yeah, it seems to be like not utilized by that many artists that I know, and it's been huge for me. So I hope that's a takeaway for some of you guys. Just how can I send out? I'm already making a post about a sale I'm having on prints, but what if that person never gets on Instagram that day? They were not going to see that post, but almost everybody gets their email directly to their phone or is at least checking their email once a day. And I know that like I only subscribe to things that I want to hear from. So especially those people that are subscribing to your newsletter, it's because they want you to send them a newsletter, you know? So I sometimes, oh, I don't want to bother people with my like promotions. Well, that's why they signed up, is because they know they might not be on Facebook that day. So super important to have a
Yeah.
newsletter.
What do you use for your newsletter, MailChimp or something else?
I use MailChimp, and it's just what I've been the most familiar with for the longest. We could do a whole nother session on newsletters, but a really important takeaway there is that people have to subscribe and you have to have proof of that subscription. So if you're using let's say that you're at a festival and you just have a notebook out and you have people give you their emails, and then you go manually type those emails into a program, they're going to ask you where you got them and have proof that people gave you permission to send them an email. Now, chances are if people actually gave you their email, like in this case, then when you send them one, they're going to open it and read it. They're not going to unsubscribe. If you were to get a bunch of random emails from somewhere else and people were not expecting that email from you and they started to unsubscribe at a fast rate, that flags these email clients and you can be punished for that violation. So my advice when it comes to newsletters is to utilize subscribe. They're called widgets, like the feature in whatever platform you're using. If it's your website that you're also sending your newsletters out in, then you'd want to use the intake form on your website. That way your website knows we use this form and those people subscribed and gave me permission. If I'm using MailChimp has the ability to produce a code that I can drop into my website that's going to show that form. And then everybody that comes to that form will automatically be subscribed in my MailChimp. So that's something I can go into later if anybody has any specific questions around that. It's definitely important to make sure that you're collecting data in whatever platform you intend on sending those emails out in, or that you can verify that you have permission to do that. And sometimes it just takes a successful campaign of like, I got all these emails, I sent them something, almost nobody unsubscribed, nobody reported it. So I'm in the clear, you know, and chances are that next time you send them an email, it'll hit their inbox. When we don't, it goes straight to spam. So I could go on for a while about this. Definitely, if you've got questions, jot it down because I'm happy to elaborate any other time on email lists.
All right, so we're gonna get to evaluating your profile pages. You really want it to represent who you are, and you want people to be able to tell what you do immediately as they look. So you don't want them to have to scroll to click on every image to read every caption before they figure out that you're an artist and that you can offer something, whether you do murals or commissions, like all of that. You want them to know within the first 10 seconds that they land on your page. So when you're looking at your page, like, does it represent how you want to be seen by your potential clients? We're going to talk a little bit about finding the balance between personal and professional. And this is sort of I find this difficult to talk about because yes, you do want to be professional, but yes, you also want to be authentic and show your personality. So the way that I think about it is show other aspects of your life, but try to tie that into your art practice. So your art business is still the primary topic of your page, but whether you're on vacation, maybe you're seeing a gallery show, or if you are, I don't know, going for a walk and see something inspiring, you can talk about how it's like incorporated into your art practice. So you're not just posting like random pictures of you partying or your food or your cat and then occasionally your artwork. You want it primarily to be your art, and if your cat's in there, it's because there's a painting behind it or something like that. So yeah, show your personality and be authentic and let people get to know you. Don't have it completely dry where like you it's just art and that's it. Like there needs to be a human behind it, but try to keep it as relevant as possible.
Totally. I just want to interject and say that it goes back to how many seconds am I able to capture their attention for? And like, let's say 3 scrolls is your max. What if like it mixed in there's too many photos that aren't relevant to your best work, and someone's never going to see that because they're scrolling through pictures of what you ate for lunch this week? Like really being selective about that, the personal stuff that you share, and knowing that it's holding people up from getting to what they might have come there for, which is to see your art.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, if you do try to, like other interests and hobbies, like if you are gonna niche down, let's say, I don't know, I'm just pulling topics from the top of my head, but like if you're into woodworking, but you also do paintings, you could totally have one art page for both those things, but you wanna kind of keep that cohesive and clear and still make it clear that you are offering both these services and that people that are coming to this page are going to see both of that. So you could start separate profiles, but if it's relevant to each other, you can definitely keep it together. And you want your images to be as high quality as possible and try to do good lighting. So do not underestimate this, because this is like you showing up to the whole world. So the same way as if you were in the gallery, you would want that to have good lighting and to be clean and to be polished. Same with the way that you're showing up to the internet. Don't just be like, oh, it's 2 a.m. I just finished this. Let me post it real quick. Like wait till you have better lighting and you can actually like stage the picture a little bit, because it makes all the difference.
Yeah, it really does. And as you guys are evaluating your pages, you're going back and you're saying, do I have too many personal photos? Is this really relevant to what I'm doing? Is this actually the best quality photo of this painting? And should I keep it here? I suggest when it's possible to archive those posts. You don't have to delete them off your profile, but when you archive them in, let's say, Instagram, it's going to just remove them from the profile grid, but you're not going to lose any of and a lot of platforms, it matters the clout that you receive from that post, the likes, it just kind of hides it. So definitely after this session, it will all be called to go back and clean up our pages and ask, if it's really relevant to what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, so we want to make sure you leave a good first impression, and right off the bat, people can see that you're an artist, this is the type of work that they do, and this is where I can go see more, this is how I can contact them. You want your most current work. Can people tell what you do at first glance? Make it simple. So make it simple to contact you, but also make it simple to understand what it is that you offer. Like if you're offering portraiture commissions, like I would put that in your bio. If you're doing murals, I would put that in your bio. And we're going to talk a little bit about like Instagram highlights and how to format those. But just try to look at your page objectively. Like if this is the first time you stumbled on it and you are your ideal customer, someone that has money and is shopping for art, if you looked at and landed on this page, like, would you be impressed? Would you know what this person is doing and how to pursue the next step?
Totally.
Yeah, and you can ask your friend to evaluate, like someone that you know is going to be really honest with you. Just have them look at your pages and be like, what's your first impression? What do you think I do? What can be improved? So that can be really helpful.
And for both websites and social media pages, in the back end of Art in Session, when you guys registered, you're able to log into the back end. You saw how you joined this call. There'll be some a resources section, and I'll give you a good list of websites to check out of artists that have really inspired me for how well done their websites are, and also some really solid social media pages of people that have got this down pat. Because this is all stuff that like we can talk about, and yeah, maybe it's common sense or it makes sense to you, but seeing it in action, I think will be really helpful. So you'll want to follow up with the resources in the back end.
Yes, and so you want to expand your reach and diversify the platforms that you use. Start with one. You don't want to jump on them right away. So get comfortable with using one platform, and then you can try out other ones. And what I found is that, like personally, I got really comfortable using TikTok, and now every other platform is trying to become TikTok. So it's that much easier for me to show up on Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, Pinterest Reels. Like everyone's doing short form video, so I can actually reuse the content that I've been making for years and jump on and show up really strong and consistently on all these other platforms because I already have like a strong footing on this one platform. So don't feel overwhelmed, but also don't just limit yourself to just one. And I suggest experimenting with newer apps, because if you got on YouTube when YouTube first became a thing, like it was really easy to become big and seen because there's so few creators on these apps. So you never know what's going to be the next Instagram or the next Facebook. So when you hear new apps, like experiment with them, see if you vibe with it, see who's on there, see how to use them. Because yeah, if you're one of the first few users, you have a really, really high success rate of becoming really big, really fast on that platform. And also, once you get good at one platform, you can cross promote it to all your other platforms. So one example of that would be if you're making a TikTok about the work in progress and you're doing all the detail shots, you make a quick video of the process and be like, to see the final piece, head over to my Instagram and have it as your newest picture. So people have an incentive to follow you on all the other pages as well. And you can do this with giveaways as well. And using new app features always gets rewarded. And by app features, I mean, like, you know, not that long ago, Instagram didn't have stories, Instagram didn't have reels. So anytime that something like that gets added, even within the stories, like now we have stickers where you can insert pictures, or stickers for the hashtags, or you know, all those little features that get added, the app rewards you for using them. So those posts will get seen by a lot more people if you're one of the first few people to use the new features within the old app. Like, for example, right now, I know TikTok has had this for a while where you can duet or like stitch the videos, meaning you can add on to someone else's video and make it your own. So Instagram Reels recently introduced that feature, and I'm not really seeing a lot of people using it. But if you were to like go, and I think they're calling it remixing. So if you went and remixed somebody else's reel and made that your own, those posts will get pushed a lot more because they want to show other users that this feature is now available. And don't take it to heart. So when it comes to social media and artists being, generally speaking, really sensitive people, I think we take everything really seriously. So if you post and you don't get rewarded with the likes and the shares, you take it personally, thinking like, oh, my art is bad, no one wants to see it. And similarly, if you post and it goes viral, you're like, oh, my art is so good, everyone wants to see it. But don't take criticism to heart, and don't take compliments to heart. Just kind of be a little bit more neutral and know that it's just a tool that you're using. And whether you're getting 1,000 likes or 0 likes, it doesn't actually say anything about you as a person, and it doesn't say how great your art is a skill. It just simply means that you are now learning how to use this tool and it's working. Or that you need to learn some other strategies and that it's not working. But either way, it says nothing about your art or you as a person. It's just more so saying whether or not what you're doing on social media is working for you.
Yes. So now that we've got solid foundation on some of the basics of establishing your online presence, encouraging everybody to go back, review your websites, review your social media platforms, we're going to dive into some of the platforms specifically. We're going to breeze through some of the, we'll go through each platform rather quickly, and then we're going to go into some of the strategy. We've got about 40 minutes before our interviews. We want to make sure we cover everything. If you guys have questions, drop them in the chat, and then we can always follow up at the end.
Yeah, and so the main reason we wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of over these platforms, it's not because we think you've never heard of them, but we want you to begin to think of social media platforms a little bit more strategically and look at them through a different lens. Like, what is the culture there? Who is the demographic there? What type of content is expected and socially acceptable there? Because you can't show up on Instagram and try to behave you would on Facebook, and you can't show up on TikTok and behave you would on Instagram. Like, all these apps have their own culture and their own expectations. And so we're just going to briefly go over some of those things so you can kind of begin to see what are your options and what might work best for you and your goals.
Exactly. And then
And
after that, we'll dive into some of the strategies to, developing your own content.
yeah, and we're going to talk about these kind of briefly, and we're going to go more into depth on a few of these, but just so you know what's out there. And starting with Instagram, first and foremost, it is a shopping platform, which a lot of people don't think of it as that, but it definitely has in the past couple of years transitioned into a full-on shopping platform. So the main button in the middle, if you press right next to the reels, there's a shopping tab, and it will show you all the people that have their shops integrated. Personally, I use Shopify for this reason. I don't know if you can integrate every other shopping website, but my Shopify is connected to Instagram, to Pinterest, to Facebook, to TikTok, and people can purchase directly from there without leaving the app. So what people don't think about, there's a lot of product photography. That's why Instagram has kind of a more polished look. It's for photos and short form videos. It was primarily a photo app, but now it's turning into a short form videos, which is most apps are. And so I'm going to stress on getting into short form videos because really in social media right now, that is where it's at. So it has the features of stories and highlights. And about the highlights, I wanted to talk a little bit. The highlights are these circles right here on your profile, and it is the prime real estate of your page. So it can be a little underlooked, but this stuff is really, really important. I don't recommend posting a bunch of random pictures or some progress shots or anything like that. You really want to, like, this is where it's a really good idea to put like first video, who you are, second video, what you do, the third video, how people can buy from you or hire you, like what are the offerings that you have. And the last tab would be like frequently asked questions. So you're really utilizing that space to the best of its capacity. And then Instagram has live streams with an option to have a guest. So that's really good for collaborating with people, and you can cross promote each other's audiences. So if you have artists, or not necessarily artists, I always like to think of reaching people outside of your own industry. So yes, you can do live streams with other artists that are, have a similar following number and might have a similar theme. So that way each other's followers go and follow. But even if you are, like let's say you paint forests or do like Western art, maybe someone that has a B&B that's a cabin in the wood, like that's a business page. You can do a live stream with them. So it still fits your theme, but you're cross promoting audiences in different industries too, not just to your artist friends. So Instagram Reels still have amazing organic reach. I actually use Instagram Reels now more than TikTok. The expectation there is a highlight, like highlights and a polished image. And it doesn't mean that you have to show up that way, but I'm just kind of speaking, generally speaking, like the image on Instagram is still kind of more like, the influencer model type things, which like that wouldn't really fly on TikTok. People expect to see more authentic people. And Instagram has a bonus program that pays for the reels, and these are just qualifications. You must be 18 with no violations and have a reel within 1,000 views in the past 30 days. So there is no there's not a certain amount of followers that you need to have. You just keep posting reels. And once you get one with over 1,000 views, you'll have a pop-up on your screen for an invitation to get paid for your reels. And it expires every 30 days. So the program runs 30 days and then you get a payout directly to your bank account, and then you'll get invited again if you keep posting.
Do you have any tips for setting up a nice site on Shopify or having it connected?
Yeah, so Shopify, I just use their free templates. I just found the most basic one that fits for me. I don't really remember the name of it. And then Shopify on the back end has this tab where you can add a bunch of different apps. So this is where you would add what I use Printful for my print on demand. And then you can add the Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those apps, and then you just log into them, and it's pretty seamless. Like Shopify also has a lot of tutorial videos if some of the stuff isn't really obvious, and they actually have a lot of like marketing stuff as well. It's not just like the most utilitarian stuff that you need to know. They definitely set you up for success. Shopify is 29 bucks a month for their basic program. I don't know if there's currently any websites where you can have a shop that are free or have a free trial. Yeah, I definitely think that Shopify is absolutely worth it. However, before I had enough traffic that I could drive there, I was using Etsy. So there was a time where I went back to Shopify, but I was just paying for it 30 months and I wasn't making enough sales. I went back to Etsy, then I boosted my shop, and then I went back to Shopify where I knew that it would pay for itself. So I know that you can definitely integrate the print on demand stuff with Etsy. I don't know if you can link it with your Instagram and stuff. Oh, you use a Shopify website. Yeah, they have templates, and there's even paid ones that you can get, but the free templates are so polished. I think that Shopify is really easy to make it look really nice.
And it also has a lot of integrations for sure. I'm also very familiar with Weebly. I've been on the do-it-yourself Weebly platform that also integrates my Printful for some time. I think that if you're just starting out and you don't have a ton of products, or maybe you're talking about just a landing page, like we mentioned before, and something like Weebly would also work for you.
Yeah, so we're gonna go into Reels and making money later on, but just as a quick answer, like I said, you get that invitation to join the bonus program, and then they just pay you for views, not on the past videos, but any future videos that you post. So once you accept the bonus program invitation, you are getting paid for all your Reels for that month period.
Quick
Just
question.
don't break the rules.
Yeah, I was wondering, so like I'm not the fastest painter. I kind of put quite a bit of hours into my pieces. And so I'm wondering like how often is it okay to like repost material or the same painting, maybe shot in a different light or a different setting?
I think we definitely touch on this, and I'll just say for now that when you post something, chances are only a very small percentage of your following saw it at that time. So if you are diversifying enough to where you're reintroducing something in a way that somehow feels different to the people that maybe saw it the first time but can reach new people, then you're headed in the right direction. I personally have reposted stuff from years before. I post stuff like random clips from a project that I maybe have posted several other times, but I'm doing it in a new way that I'm reaching new people. And that is definitely something we're going to cover in content creation. Guys, we'll come back to some of these questions as well. We're going to jump into Facebook. This has been a really great resource for me. It is story, image, and word-based platform. Unlike Instagram, where people are not necessarily reading those descriptions, Facebook allows you to highlight the text and make that just as important component of the post as everything else. It's also got an older demographic, and I find that these are the people in my fan base that tend to have the most money. I also paint a lot of murals, so I'm looking for homeowners and business owners that have wall space, and I've definitely been able to find them on Facebook because of that older demographic. They also have a bonus program that pays for Reels. To qualify for an invitation, you must get 1,000 views on a Reel within 30 days. Special interest groups on Facebook are one of the most important things for me to stress today. How many of you belong to art groups? Anybody? How about community groups? Are you in your neighborhood art group? Not just a random art group, but for your city specifically. That's huge. That's where I'm getting the majority of my mural clients are from, my neighborhood group. People want to support local artists. They want to hire somebody for custom jobs that lives in their neighborhood. So when you have a presence in those groups, it's also a great way to cross promote with locals. I have relationships with real estate agents and several other types of businesses that I don't even have to be active in those groups. When someone posts, hey, I'm looking for a mural, those people that I've networked with in the past are tagging me in those posts. Art in Session is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide professional and educational opportunities to creatives. Thanks to support from our listeners, we are able to keep this mission going. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider donating at www.artinsession.org.
For a mural, those people that I've networked with in the past are tagging me in those posts. So having a presence in special interest groups is huge. Another example of this is like I paint a lot of spirit animals. So I'm in spirit animals, sea turtles, the wolf group, right? I'm going into specific groups that are relevant to the art that I'm making, and I'm posting in there. Marketplace is got a ton of users. I don't like to necessarily like have my art mixed in with what feels like garage sale items, but I feel like more and more people are using Facebook Marketplace to find unique items, almost like Etsy as well. So it really depends on what you're selling and what the price point is. But Facebook Marketplace does have an incredible amount of users, and that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think it's better for like merch type items, or if you have, like repurposed furniture or something like that. It's good for that.
Totally. Or in those special interest groups, if they let you post products, then that's a good way to do it as well. Live streaming on Facebook can be very beneficial. The people that are Facebookers are dedicated to that space. They spend a lot of time there. So chances are you'll get some viewers on your live streams. I know I've had some success. Your difference between a fan page and group, and this is important. How many people have a fan page? How many people have a group? Okay, so as your following starts to grow and you've got people collecting your art, having a group can be super beneficial, because then those group members can talk amongst themselves. They can trade your art. They can post the new things that they've purchased. It's also a really great way to reach people with merch drops. It's just like more of a direct conversation than a fan page, which is more like a landing page where somebody may or may not have to engage with that, or they might not see that in their post. But your fans on your fan page can't talk to each other the way that they can in a group. So a group is more like a community. Your fan page is more like that landing page. I personally have both. Some people won't be able to have access to the group if it's private. So my fan page is public, and that's like my website on Facebook, right? And anybody can go to that fan page and follow what I'm up to. It's just as important that I post there as it is in my group, which is a smaller community, or of people that want to follow my art specifically and want to be able to talk about it and trade those collectible items. Same thing here with the shop integration, like she mentioned, to be able to have people be able to shop your items without having to leave whatever platform they're on is great, and that's available through your fan page. We're going to touch on Facebook a lot more in the third session for monetizing your platforms. I certainly have a lot to say about Facebook. I know a lot of people have been triggered by that in the past, because it is a lot of your friends and families potentially, and you're having to find a different voice or wanting to utilize a different voice and maybe don't feel comfortable there. But there are ways to get around that and to, again, formulate these groups or utilize the groups that are already present to reach more people. Super important thing. All right, TikTok queen.
TikTok. So TikTok is what started the whole short form video craze. And right now every other app is competing with TikTok. And I still think that TikTok is an amazing opportunity to build a community. The algorithm there is not like anywhere else. It actually shows you stuff that you're interested in, which is why it can be so addicting, and it's a slippery slope. So you really have to set some boundaries around that. But TikTok will deliver all your videos and all your messages to the people that are thinking exactly the same things as you are. So that's why it's such a powerful tool, and that's why people can grow there so quickly. And I don't think there's been any other website or platform in the past that has changed people's lives so much so quickly, where a lot of people were just like losing jobs during the lockdowns, and then they started posting their art on TikTok, and now they're making more money than they ever did at any day job just doing art. And so it's incredibly inspiring and educational. So the Creator Fund pays for use, although right now, the money that they pay you has dropped significantly. So like getting paid through Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest recently introduced short form videos. So like all the newer platforms that are competing with TikTok are currently paying a lot better just for views. However, I still feel like it's worth being there, not just to get paid from the platform, but to reach the people and build your own business. And basically any of the trends that you're seeing anywhere else, they all started on TikTok. So that's the original platform where all of these things are happening. So on TikTok, you can create playlists, which is kind of like your YouTube playlist, where it's like if you did TikToks teaching something, you can put them all into one folder so people can binge your videos based around that subject. And that's really helpful. Creator Marketplace, it's not like a shop, although like I said, I do have my Shopify integrated to TikTok, which is kind of new. Creator Marketplace is for, I can't remember the follower number that you have to have. I think it's 10,000 followers that you need to have to join the Creator Marketplace. But that is basically where brands go to meet creators. So you can get paid for advertising like art supplies or a certain hashtag or whatever is happening at the time. But basically people that are advertising on social media can go to Creator Marketplace and find the creators to collaborate with and pay them to create content. Stitches and duets, as I mentioned, that is another way to collaborate with other creators where you're either reacting or adding on to their video. And I'm saying this platform is #1 for musicians because right now, for example, a lot of people will do like a guitar riff and they'll be like, add vocals to this. So you can kind of duet people like that. And at the end of the day, there's like a whole band and it's all split up and you have, 5 people collaborating on a song without ever having met. And I've known a lot of like Billie Eilish, Doja Cat are super active on TikTok. So, they're duetting or reacting or engaging with like other musicians' content, and they're literally helping their careers pop off just because this big user, showed interest or duetted with you and sang along with your song. So it's really great for musicians, but we can use that as artists as well. There's other ways to duet in that sense, but like if you do music, you absolutely need to be on TikTok. And you have live streams, you can have up to 4 or 5 guests, I think. So you can actually do like a live call, almost like we're doing here on Zoom, but have an audience and people can send you gifts. So if you're having a debate or something, or even if you're just hanging out, people can send you gifts, which then can be cashed out for money, which I mean, a lot of them are just worth pennies, but still, if you are live streaming your studio practice every single evening, like even just making $10 here and there, it's definitely adding up. And yeah, the vibe on TikTok is definitely more authentic, more real. Everything is in real time. Like there's been definitely like emergency situations that have not been broadcasted on the news yet are definitely like already reaching people on TikTok. There's a lot of behind the scenes type of thing. And people create really strong, tight-knit communities. So you can really find like really niche communities that then become like family. What does the average payment look like on the average platform? So that varies really greatly and it goes down drastically. But like I know in the beginning, when Facebook just announced their reels a few months back, people were making up to $35,000 a month. And that's if you're posting consistently. Like I posted maybe 3 or 4 reels and I got paid like $200 and they all got like maybe 1,000 views. So it wasn't even that much effort. So like the newer this thing is, the more they pay you, but you have to jump on it right away. And the reason I say that, it's not, I don't expect it to stay that way. And like right now we're on Pinterest. So this is the newest thing for Pinterest, the short form video. So if you have some videos and you're starting to do reels, like I highly recommend just jumping on Pinterest. They do have the 250 follower minimum to qualify. But basically everyone that's competing with TikTok are paying for short form videos. And the second that they start, you get paid a lot more than you would on the platforms that started out. So even like Instagram was paying me about $25, $30 per reel. And now that's dropping down and down and down every month. So it is a way to get paid. But to me, it's a bonus. It's not something that I'm doing necessarily as, a form of income, but it's like I'm getting paid to promote my artwork that I would be doing anyway. So it's almost like I'm just getting paid to show up to work. And Pinterest is used as a search engine. I'm saying it's underrated because a lot of people don't think about it. It's not a social media platform, but people do go there to shop, and people go there that are decorating their homes. A lot of interior designers are on there. It's used for mood boards, inspirations, and shopping. So if people find your art and they're really inspired by it, they're probably going to go to your website. They're going to go to your other platforms, and everything on Pinterest is linked. It can be linked to your social media if you don't have a website, but you can link everything to your website, to your newsletter. So it's a really, really good way to funnel people, because it's easier to go viral on Pinterest than it is on a lot of these other platforms. And people don't think about it like that. So there's a lot of shopping, a lot of users. And the way to optimize Pinterest is basically you create a profile for yourself, and then you have boards, which are kind of like folders. And in these boards, you want them to be themed around something like what your buyers would be interested in. So for example, if you're doing festival posters mostly, then I would do, like a board for like camping gear, a board for like my favorite festivals, a board for how to prepare for a festival, and then a board for best festival art I've ever seen. So this is where you'd put a lot of your art. So that way you have a Pinterest account that is created for your ideal customer, and it has your art incorporated, but you're not just like, hey, buy my art, buy my art, buy my art. It's actually tailored to the user that you're thinking about. And keywords is the way to get found on Pinterest.
All right, so again, we're going to breeze through the next three really quickly because I want to make sure we have time to get to the most important points here at the end of the slideshow. Snapchat definitely had its glory days. We all know 24-hour, disappearing messages, and a lot of people jumped on that trend. It's again with the short form videos. It's casual, it's on the go, it's also behind the scenes. It's a younger demographic. It's not as user friendly, so you don't see as many like people in the older generations utilizing Snapchat. What I would say about Snapchat is that if you already have a presence there and a following, and it's not going to take away from your social media strategy to add that in the mix, then go for it. If you're trying to start from scratch on Snapchat, unless that's going to be your primary focus, it may not be necessary. But it really depends on what your end goals are. We're going to talk a lot more about all of these different platforms in the monetization session. So we'll just, again, be moving kind of quickly. You can also live stream on Snapchat. Twitter, definitely a place for politics. How many Twitter users do we have? Anyone? All right. Twitter blew up back in the day. It's still going strong. It's a great way to have direct access to celebrities. If you're trying to make connections with brands, a lot of those people respond to their own tweets, and you never know, like, if you'll get responded to by reaching out to them. It's been amazing to have like that kind of connectivity to people that were so unreachable in the past. And short text-based active conversations, they do allow you to post pictures and videos as well. Also links. Huge in the NFT community for those people wanting to make NFTs out of their art or already active in that space. And you know that the conversation around NFTs is happening primarily on Twitter. Retweets are a way for people to like share content easily without having to, it's just as simple as pressing a retweet, and that's great. It's like the same equivalent to a share anywhere else. Shows up on your profile as content that you posted. So even on times where I don't have time to make new content for Twitter, I can just go retweet a bunch of stuff that's relevant to what I'm doing with my own initiatives. Can be a more mature demographic because it's been around the longest. So you find, again, a lot of people there talking about politics or special interests. Any Reddit users? Nobody? Guys, welcome to my world. Reddit is an awesome place. It's a word and image-based forum. It's essentially a very valuable information source. If Wikipedia were a social platform, it would be Reddit, like a place where everybody's contributing to the information there. It's policed by users that are very passionate about the space, and it's broken down into these niche-based communities. Anonymity is huge on Reddit, unlike other platforms where like the look and feel of your profile and what your content is the primary focus. People don't even go to your Reddit profile necessarily. They're reading a comment that you left on a post. They're seeing your post in their feed, and they're engaging strictly on that content itself. So it's a lot less about you as the artist and more about your opinion on something or your contribution to the space, which is very different. Can reach millions of new people that are not on other platforms. Redditors, like a lot of the viral content, especially in memes, originates on Reddit. It goes viral on Reddit, it hits there, and then it like goes to all of these other platforms. So not so much TikTok. TikTok's kind of its own thing that makes its way back to Reddit, but you'll find that a lot of viral content has originated here. Over 430 million active users on Reddit. So definitely not a place to underestimate. Subgroups based on special interests, literally anything that you could think of, there's a group for. And I'm going to share a long list of groups that have been really effective for me to post in. Communities near you is one of those. It's a great way to find, again, people that are in your neighborhood that may want what it is that you have to offer. And they have a karma/award and voting system that's much different than any social platform. And I'll show you what that looks like. I've also done live broadcasting on Reddit, and I had over 200,000 viewers randomly show up on my live stream while I was just painting, you know, and it's because of the amount of people that are using it at one time and how much they really care about like the activity taking place there. And I guess the same could be said for every social media platform when it's somebody's thing, but Reddit has been around for a really long time. So it's got a very interesting user base. Here's an example of some of the communities that I belong to. This is in order, so it's literally just the A's, but you can see there's a lot of art groups. The local communities, it suggests these for you, you know, depending on where you're at, and you'd be so surprised. To a community with 25 million people, it may be harder for my posts to be seen. What else is relevant?
You
Or I've
froze for a
also
second.
gone.
You
Oh,
froze.
am
You
I back?
froze for just a second. Yeah,
Yep,
just
you're
repeat
back.
what you said.
Okay, yeah, so I was saying that when you go to click on a community, it'll show you how many people in Reddit are active on that community, and you can choose to engage based on like what other people have posted. And it's really a place for you to do a lot of market research. This is where I find out what other artists are doing, what's going viral on the internet, how to come up with new content ideas, because stuff is shared here that I'm not seeing everywhere else. So when it comes to thinking outside of the box, I'm definitely hitting Reddit for some inspiration. I've had several posts go viral that have led to followers on other platforms. Maybe I don't have it here, but the way the profile is set up, it links directly to all my other platforms right at the top. So I can direct traffic back to my TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, etc. And I highly recommend at least doing some research here. Go check out Reddit if you don't know anything about it. We'll hit this again on session 3, but definitely a place of interest.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to get on Reddit now. It's been on my mind, but I haven't utilized it at all. And yeah, I wanted to include YouTube. While it's not necessarily a social media website, it's still a place where people can come and find you. And it's primarily more for long form videos, but it also has YouTube Shorts. So just as I said, you can reuse the same short videos that you made for your Reels or your TikTok, and you can upload them to YouTube. And they also have a program that pays for the videos. Because again, not that many people are still making the short form videos, even though it seems like that's all there is everywhere, but everyone's trying to compete with TikTok and no one's quite doing it like they do on TikTok. So now all these other apps are paying for that. And YouTube is kind of like your own personal Wikipedia where people can come and learn more about your process, maybe watch longer videos, learn more about your process and your studio practice. So I think it's a really good way to engage with people. So it's got the longest lifespan for your content. So you make a video once and people can find it for years. It's not like an Instagram post where like it gets buried and no one will ever see it again. You don't need to be in the YouTube Partner Program, which is the program that pays their creators to monetize the shorts. You can just upload the shorts and then submit them to the program. So that's kind of like a separate thing. I just wanted to mention that because I know everyone's interested in monetizing. So I'm just like throwing out all the ideas that are possible. But like I said, we'll cover all of that more in depth. And here, if you click the next, there's this is 1000. He's my favorite art YouTuber to watch. He's incredibly inspiring, and he had his own like very successful storefront, like a gallery, and he was running his own business. But because he's so successful and just creating content on YouTube, he decided to step away from that because that was just so much work. And he's getting paid so much just to make YouTube videos where he's like collaborating with random people or other artists, or just making up random fun projects where he'll be like, oh, I'm going to go find the most random thing I can find at the thrift store and paint on that. And he'll make a YouTube video out of it. And he's getting paid to create content, to make art, and all of his stuff sells out. I know he has like a t-shirt subscription as well, where he makes new t-shirts every single month, but he's my favorite art YouTuber, so definitely check him out. He's so inspiring. Clubhouse, do you want to cover Clubhouse?
Sure, it's an entrepreneur's app. It's good for networking, collaborations, and education. It's also voice-based chat rooms. Do we have any Clubhouse users here? Okay, Clubhouse got really big during COVID, especially when people had a lot more time at home to spend in these chat rooms. It's a great way to practice public speaking, to use your voice. You're basically joining live chat rooms, and there'll be moderators that are conducting the chat, and it's topic based as well. So you can find these niche based communities like we've talked about on all of the platforms. And it's a like real time conversation and interaction. So if you're somebody that is really good at that and not afraid to talk to people, then definitely jump right in. It's also for those of you that are not as strong in that area, to get some practice, you know, with people that you don't know or really care what they think about you, you know, just get in there and talk about your art and promote your offerings.
Yeah, I think just getting in the habit of like sharing your message and learning how to talk about your art without just kind of depending on showing it. Because even if you show your art, like people still want to hear more about it. So people like buy your art when they can relate to the story and they know more about it. Like they create an emotional connection. So I really love Clubhouse because you can practice talking about your artwork without depending on showing an image. And also there's so many different niche communities and groups. It's kind of like joining little podcast rooms. So you can, again, network with people and find other people in your industry, outside of your industry, and like create more opportunities to collaborate.
Totally. We're going to move on to nurturing your community.
Yeah, so I wanted to include this because when it comes to showing up online and especially monetizing your platforms, we want to think about this in a three-part process. So kind of think of it almost like dating or courting someone. You know, you don't want to try to close the deal in the first conversation. So there are apps that are better for like meeting new people, finding a wider audience, just showing up, making the first initial contact. And then there's other platforms that are better for like building the relationship, nurturing the relationship, getting to know, the audience gets to know you. And then there's other platforms that are best for closing the, like making sales. So Reels and TikTok are definitely number one for reaching new people. Right now at this time, it's unprecedented. Like even during the beginning of Instagram, where like hashtags were really good at reaching people, like no one was growing as fast as they are today with short form video. And once you find these new people, you want to direct them to all of your platforms and your newsletter so you can begin to nurture that relationship, and you create more content that is just showing what you do, why you do it, how you do it, you know, finding common ground with people. And people will buy from you when they know and trust you, but if they're just seeing something for the first time, it's very unlikely that people are going to commit to it. But if they've been following along your journey, they've seen your struggles, they've seen your successes, then they might be much easier to convert to sales. So I don't want you to kind of like create this platform and be like, oh, I had a viral video, yeah, I made no sales, what happened? And it's like, well, viral videos are more for acquiring the audience. Then the audience that's there, it gets to engage with you. And then from there, once you create something new, people are going to be already jumping and asking and lining up and calling dibs on your pieces because they already are connecting to you. They know you, they know what you do. So I kind of, just as a general rule, I put down, make 10% of your posts to be offerings or be like, this is for sale. So it's like you want to let people know that you have a shop, that things are for sale, that you're a professional artist. But you also don't want that to dominate your whole page, because think of it the same that it is in real life. If you walk into someone's booth or someone's shop, when someone's desperate and like really want to make that sale, all you want to do is just like walk away. It feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like open for engagement. So the same with social media. If you go on someone's page and all it is like sale, this is a discount, this is a sale, this is for sale, this is for sale, you can buy this. Like that in itself also kind of like, oh, this is just a shopping page. I don't care about that. So make the page and your social media presence more about you and your artwork than it is about selling, because yes, you want to make that obvious and easy, but you also don't want that to kind of take over your whole presence.
Totally. Okay, so I actually think, and Domé, tell me what you think about this, because we're right at the top of the hour. I think we should take a little break before we dive into an interview with Ellie, and maybe we can pick up with strategy development at the top of session 2, since that's going into content creation. I just feel like we'll be a little bit rushed to try to push the next few slides and give everybody a break. That sounds good?
I think so, because this is really important. I definitely wouldn't want to rush through this.
Agreed. So next week, we're going to dive right into strategy development. We're going to talk about analytics. We're also going to cover 2 apps that I use for scheduling and time blocking, and how to go about simplifying your social media schedules. I know that's where a lot of people are getting hung up on, how do I be consistent, and what are the tools that are available to help me be effective in doing that. So definitely, I know, like we said before, this was a lot of information in a short period of time. Some of it may have felt like an important review, but I'm really glad we started with this today, just kind of covering the basics on all of the platforms, so that next week, when we get into the specifics about creating content and how to develop your own strategy, you'll be ready.
Art in Session is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide professional and educational opportunities to creatives. Thanks to support from our listeners, we are able to keep this mission going. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider donating at www.artinsession.org.